Velrith had seen many things in his long life as a scholar. He traveled across the galaxy, studying different species and writing about their cultures. His people, the Luminari, were peaceful and curious. They did not fight wars. They only watched and learned. But now, everything had changed. The consuming swarm had arrived in their galaxy like a plague. They were not a species that could be reasoned with. They did not want territory or resources in the normal way. They simply consumed everything. Entire worlds turned into empty husks after the swarm passed through. Billions died. Civilizations that had existed for thousands of years vanished in weeks. The Galactic Coalition formed quickly. Every species that wanted to survive had to join together. They needed warriors. They needed the most dangerous, most powerful species in the galaxy to stand against this threat. Velrith received permission to document this historic moment. He would observe the formation of the Defense Force and record everything for future generations. If there were any future generations. His ship docked at the Coalition Military Station, a massive structure floating in deep space. As he walked through the corridors, his recording equipment hummed quietly, capturing every detail. He had prepared himself mentally for what he would see. The Coalition had called upon the galaxy's most terrifying warrior races. The first species he encountered were the Krath. Velrith stopped walking when he saw them. Each Krath stood over 8 feet tall, their bodies covered in black armored exoskeletons that gleamed under the station lights. They moved on 6 legs, their upper 4 limbs ending in razor-sharp claws that could cut through metal. Their mandibles clicked and clattered as they communicated, dripping with acid that hissed when it hit the floor. Velrith had read about them, but seeing them in person was different. These were apex predators, evolved on a world where only the most deadly survived. They had conquered their own planet through pure violence. Further down the corridor, he found the Vorthen. These beings made Velrith's skin crawl in a way the Krath did not. The Vorthen did not need to breathe. They floated through the air, their bodies shifting and changing like liquid shadow. They communicated through telepathy, and Velrith could feel the edge of their minds brushing against his thoughts. It felt cold and endless, like staring into the void of space itself. The Vorthen could survive in hard vacuum. They could manipulate gravity, crushing enemies or tearing ships apart with just their minds. Some said they fed on fear. Then there were the Burning Choir. Velrith had to view them through special screens because no organic being could get close to them. They existed at temperatures over 2,000 degrees. Their bodies glowed white-hot, and the air around them shimmered with heat. Metal melted in their presence. They sang to each other in frequencies that would shatter glass, their voices a constant humming that vibrated through the walls. They were silicon-based life, as different from Velrith as fire from water. These were the defenders of the galaxy. Nightmares made real. Velrith felt a strange mixture of awe and terror as he recorded them. With these species fighting together, surely the swarm could be stopped. Then he noticed the humans. They stood in a small group near the main briefing room. Velrith almost walked past them without a second glance. Compared to the other species, they seemed so ordinary, so fragile. Humans were small, barely 6 feet tall at most. Their skin was soft and exposed, easily damaged. They wore armor, but it was clearly artificial, not natural, like the Krath exoskeleton. They carried weapons that looked primitive, metal tubes that fired small projectiles using chemical reactions. Some had energy shields, but those were technology, not innate abilities. Velrith approached them slowly, his curiosity growing. A human with commander insignia noticed him and smiled. The gesture showed teeth, which Velrith had learned was a human sign of friendliness, though in most species, it would be a threat display. "You must be the observer," the human said. His voice was calm and even. "I'm Commander Hyun. This is Dr. Nari, our science officer." The female human nodded at Velrith. She had kind eyes, he noticed. Both humans seemed remarkably relaxed given the circumstances. "I am Velrith of the Luminary," he replied, bowing slightly. "I hope you do not mind my questions, but I must ask, what does your species contribute to this defense force? The other races here have considerable natural abilities. Dr. Nari and Commander Hyun exchanged a glance. Something passed between them. Some shared understanding that Velrith could not read. "We're adaptable," Hyun said simply. Before Velrith could ask what that meant, a loud clicking sound echoed through the corridor. A Krath warrior approached, its massive form making the humans look even smaller by comparison. It stopped in front of them, mandibles clicking in what Velrith's translator interpreted as amusement. "Soft skins," the Krath chittered. "You will hide behind us when the swarm comes, yes? Let the real warriors fight?" The humans did not react with anger or fear. Commander Hyun simply looked up at the Krath warrior. He had to tilt his head back quite far, and smiled again. "We'll do our part," Hyun said quietly. The Krath made a sound like laughter and moved on. Other species gathered for the first strategic meeting. Velrith followed them into the briefing room, his recording equipment capturing everything. The room was large enough to accommodate all the different species. Holographic displays showed star maps and tactical data about the swarm. The coalition commander, a Vorthan named Kesahal, began explaining the situation. The swarm was moving toward the outer rim colonies. They needed to establish defensive positions and prepare for the first major engagement. Different species offered their capabilities. The Krath would lead ground assaults. The Vorthan would handle space combat and psychic reconnaissance. The Burning Choir would serve as heavy assault units, incinerating large swarm formations. The humans remained quiet through most of the meeting, just listening. Their eyes moved constantly, watching the displays, studying the other species, absorbing information. Velrith found their behavior odd. They did not boast or make demands like the other warriors. Near the end of the meeting, Kesahal addressed the humans directly. "And your species, Commander Hyun? What do you bring to this coalition beyond your small numbers and soft bodies?" The room fell quiet. Several species made sounds that might have been amusement. The humans were clearly the weakest species present. Everyone could see that. Commander Hyun stood slowly. He looked at each species in turn, his expression unreadable. "We bring adaptability," he repeated. "We've survived ice ages, predators, diseases, and each other. We're not the strongest or the fastest, but we learn. We adjust. We find ways to win even when we shouldn't be able to." A Krath warrior clicked its mandibles in clear laughter this time. Hyun smiled at the sound. "You'll see." The meeting ended. As the species dispersed to their quarters, Velrith found himself thinking about the humans. They were so confident despite being so physically weak. What did they know that the others did not? He would find out soon enough. The swarm was coming, and the first battle would begin within days. Velrith recorded his initial observations in his log. The humans are an anomaly. They possess no natural weapons, no armored skin, no psychic powers. Yet they show no fear. Their confidence seems misplaced, but it is genuine. I wonder if this is bravery, or simply ignorance of what they will face. Time will reveal the truth. He had no idea how right he was, or how wrong. The alarm came 3 days later. The swarm had arrived at Mining Colony 7, a small settlement on the edge of Coalition space. 12,000 colonists lived there, mostly workers and their families. Now they were trapped, and the swarm was coming. The defense force moved quickly. Ships launched from the station within minutes. Velrith secured a spot on a transport vessel, his recording equipment strapped to his body. This was what he had come to document, the first real battle against the swarm. As they dropped toward the planet's surface, Velrith watched the tactical displays. The swarm had already landed. Red dots covered the screens, thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands. They were spreading across the colony like a disease. The transport shook as they entered atmosphere. Through the windows, Velrith could see other ships descending. The Krath drop pods slammed into the ground like meteors. The Vorthan simply appeared in flashes of displaced space. The burning choir came down in spheres of contained heat that scorched the earth beneath them. The human transports landed more carefully, deploying their soldiers in organized groups. Velrith disembarked with them, staying close to the command unit where Hyun was coordinating the defense. Then Velrith saw the swarm for the first time. They came in waves. Some were the size of dogs, scuttling on multiple legs, their bodies covered in sharp chitin. Others were larger, with wings that buzzed like chainsaws. Some burrowed underground, erupting from below, and some simply exploded when they got close to defenders, showering everything nearby with acidic biological matter. The battle began, and it was chaos. The Krath charged forward with terrifying speed, their claws ripped through swarm creatures like paper. Acid from their mandibles melted the enemy. Velrith watched one Krath warrior tear through 20 swarm soldiers in less than a minute. Their exoskeletons protected them from most attacks. When swarm creatures tried to bite or claw them, it was like attacking solid metal. The Vorthen fought differently. They floated above the battlefield, their minds reaching out. Suddenly, entire groups of swarm creatures would simply collapse, crushed by invisible gravity. Or they would be flung into the air, smashing into buildings or other enemies. The Vorthen did not even need to move. They just thought, and enemies died. The burning choir were walking weapons. They moved through swarm formations, and everything around them caught fire. The creatures screamed as they burned. The heat was so intense that Velrith had to stay far away even to record them. Where the choir walked, nothing lived. The defense should have been working. The coalition forces were powerful, but the swarm just kept coming. For every creature killed, 10 more appeared. They came from tunnels, from the sky, from everywhere at once. The Krath began to tire. The Vorthen minds grew strained from the constant psychic effort. The burning choir was effective but slow. Then, Velrith started noticing the humans. They fought differently from everyone else. They did not charge like the Krath. They did not stand still like the Vorthen. They moved constantly, never staying in one place. They used their environment in ways the other species did not. A squad led by a human named Taiyang took position in a ruined building. When swarm creatures came, the humans shot them through carefully chosen windows and doorways. They created what humans called a kill box, a place where the enemy had to come to them, where every angle was covered by human weapons. When too many creatures came at once, the humans collapsed part of the building on them, then moved to a new position. An engineer named Jiwan did something that surprised Velrith even more. She took mining explosives from the colony and rigged them with motion sensors. When swarm creatures walked past, the explosives detonated. She created an entire minefield in under 10 minutes using materials she found lying around. The human medical officer, Sujin, moved between wounded soldiers of all species. She treated a Krath warrior whose leg had been torn off, using human medical knowledge combined with quick research on her portable computer. The Krath should have died, but Sujin stabilized it. She did the same for a Vorthen who had been physically damaged, despite Vorthen biology being completely different from anything she had studied. But what struck Velrith most was how the humans communicated. They talked constantly. Every human was connected through radio communication. They shared information instantly. Swarm flanking left, 20 meters. Copy that, adjusting fire. Building 3 is compromised, fall back to Building 5. Understood, moving now. Wounded Krath, Sector 7, need medical. On my way. It was like watching a single organism with many bodies. When one human fell, and several did, the others immediately adjusted. There was no panic, no confusion. They just adapted and kept fighting. 3 hours into the battle, something happened that changed everything. The swarm started coming from underground. They had been tunneling beneath the colony the entire time. Tunnels opened up behind the coalition lines, and suddenly enemies were everywhere. The defensive formation broke. Species got separated. The situation turned critical. Taiyang's squad was cut off from the main force. Velrith was with them, trapped in a building surrounded by swarm creatures. The windows and doors were blocked. More creatures poured in by the second. The humans did not freeze or panic. Taiyang immediately started giving orders. Jiwan, can you blow the floor? Give me 30 seconds. We don't have 30 seconds. Then give me 20. The other humans formed a tight circle, firing at anything that came through the doors. Their weapons were not as powerful as Krath claws or Vorthen psychic attacks, but they were accurate. Every shot hit. Every shot killed. Jiwan worked frantically, placing charges on the floor. 15 seconds. 10 seconds. The swarm was breaking through. Done! Everyone get to the center! The floor exploded downward. The humans dropped through into the tunnels below, the same tunnels the swarm was using. But instead of finding more enemies, they found a path. The swarm had not expected anyone to go down into their own tunnels. Taeyang led them through the darkness, using night vision equipment built into their helmets. They moved fast through the tunnels, emerged behind swarm lines, and attacked from an unexpected direction. The surprise assault broke the swarm's coordination in that sector. Across the battlefield, similar stories played out. Humans adapted. They improvised. They found solutions that no other species thought of. When the Vorthan reported that swarm creatures were resistant to psychic attacks in certain areas, a human technician named Minji suggested using sonic weapons. She repurposed mining equipment to generate sound waves that disrupted swarm communication. It worked. The creatures became confused and easier to kill. When the burning choir could not reach a swarm nest because it was too deep underground, human soldiers went in with flamethrowers and explosives. Places the choir could not go, humans could. They burned the nest from the inside. The battle lasted 6 hours. By the end, the colony was saved. Barely. The swarm was destroyed or driven off. 8,000 colonists survived. 4,000 did not. The coalition forces gathered at the landing zone. Every species showed signs of the battle. The Krath were covered in wounds. The Vorthan flickered weakly, their energy drained. The burning choir dimmed, their heat lower than before. The humans looked exhausted but alert. They immediately began helping with evacuation efforts, treating more wounded and establishing security perimeter. Velrith examined his recordings. The numbers were interesting. The Krath had the highest kill count, over 3,000 swarm creatures destroyed. The Vorthan had killed 2,000. The burning choir, 1,500. The humans had killed only 800 combined. But the recordings also showed something else. 3 times during the battle, the swarm had broken through coalition lines. 3 times, they had reached positions where they could have overrun the entire defense. And 3 times, humans had stopped them. When swarm tunneled beneath the east wall, Jiwon had detected the vibrations and warned everyone. When swarm flyers prepared to attack the command post, Minji had shot down the first wave with precise fire, disrupting their formation. When a swarm heavy creature, something the size of a transport vehicle, broke through the main gate, Taeyang's squad had targeted its legs with concentrated fire, bringing it down before it could cause catastrophic damage. The humans had not killed the most enemies, but they had prevented defeat. Commander Hyun found Velrith near the transports. The commander's armor was scorched and dented. He had blood on his face, not his own. But he was calm. "Did you get good recordings?" Hyun asked. "Yes," Velrith said. "Your species fought differently than I expected." "We're not the strongest," Hyun said, repeating his words from days before. "We're not the fastest, but we've spent our entire evolution learning to survive things that wanted to kill us. Predators, disease, ice ages, each other. We got good at adapting because we had to." A Krath warrior approached. It was the same one that had mocked the humans before the battle. It looked at Hyun for a long moment. "Soft skin," it clicked. "You fight. Adequately." Coming from a Krath, that was high praise. As they lifted off from the colony, Velrith recorded his observations. The humans do not win through strength. They win through adaptation. They assess, adjust, and overcome. I am beginning to understand why they were so confident. But this was only one battle. The war has just begun. He did not know how right he was, or how much more he would learn about humans in the months to come. The war continued. Weeks turned into months. The swarm attacked colony after colony, and the coalition fought them on dozens of worlds. Velrith traveled with the defense force, recording everything. But as time passed, he found himself watching the humans more than any other species. The pattern became clear quickly. In any single battle, the Krath or Vorthan or Burning Choir would achieve more kills. They were more powerful in direct combat. But between battles, something else happened. The other species needed rest. Krath warriors could fight for about 6 hours before their bodies gave out. They were incredibly strong and fast during that time, but afterward they entered a recovery state that lasted almost a full day. They had to eat massive amounts of protein and sleep deeply. If pushed beyond their limits, some died from exhaustion. The Vorthen had different limitations. Using their psychic powers drained them in ways that were hard to measure. After a major battle, they needed days to recover their mental strength. Push them too hard, and their minds would fracture. Velrith witnessed one Vorthen who tried to fight while exhausted. The being simply stopped existing, its body dissolving into nothing as its consciousness scattered. The burning choir needed to refuel their internal heat. They absorbed energy from stars or reactors, but the process took time. Without proper rest, their temperatures dropped, and they became slower, dimmer, less effective. But the humans just kept going. Velrith watched a human soldier named Doyen fight in 3 consecutive battles over 72 hours. The man slept for only 4 hours total during that entire time. He used stimulant drugs that the humans called combat caffeine and something else called energy supplements. His movements became slower, his eyes red and tired, but he kept making good decisions. He kept fighting effectively. "How is this possible?" Velrith asked Dr. Nari during a transport between battlefields. "Your species should be collapsing." Nari smiled tiredly. She looked exhausted herself, dark circles under her eyes, but she was still working, still treating wounded soldiers from various species. "Humans are endurance predators," she explained. "On our home world, we evolved to chase prey for days. We're not fast like big cats. We're not strong like bears. But we can keep moving when everything else stops. We just keep going. Our bodies are built for it, and our minds learn to push through pain and exhaustion because stopping meant death." Velrith recorded her words carefully. Endurance predators. The concept was fascinating and disturbing. But physical endurance was not the only difference. There was something else, something harder to measure. After a particularly brutal battle on a mining world, the coalition lost half its forces. A swarm ambush had caught them in the open. Hundreds died in minutes. Velrith watched species react to the trauma in different ways. Several Krath warriors entered catatonic states. They curled up and did not move for days. The horror of watching their clan members torn apart had broken something in them. Krath were strong fighters, but they were not emotionally prepared for this kind of prolonged warfare. 2 Vorthen minds shattered completely. The psychic death screams of so many beings overwhelmed them. Their bodies remained, but their consciousness was gone, lost in some mental void. The other Vorthen held a ceremony and ended their empty shells mercifully. The burning choir simply grew quieter. They did not have emotions the way other species did, but even they seemed affected by the constant death. The humans held a memorial service. It lasted 15 minutes. They stood in formation, listened to names being read, and observed a moment of silence. Some cried, some did not. Then they returned to duty. Velrith approached Commander Hyun after the service. "How can your people recover so quickly? Do you not feel grief?" Hyun's face was hard to read. "We feel it. We just can't afford to stop and process it right now. We grieve later, after we win. That's how we honor the dead. By making sure their sacrifice meant something." The commander paused, looking out at the stars through the ship's window. "My grandfather fought in our world wars. He told me something once. The enemy gets a vote. No matter how tired you are, no matter how much it hurts, the enemy keeps coming. So you keep fighting. You push the pain down, box it up, and deal with it later. Because if you stop, you die. And if you die, everyone you're protecting dies too." Velrith recorded the conversation. The human capacity for psychological compartmentalization was remarkable. They could acknowledge trauma without being paralyzed by it. But what impressed Velrith most was human creativity. The swarm learned and adapted quickly. After the first dozen battles, they began evolving defenses against coalition weapons. Their armor thickened against Krath claws. They developed psychic dampening through sheer numbers, making Vorthen attacks less effective. They started coating themselves in heat-resistant biological gel that protected against the burning choir. The other coalition species tried the same tactics harder. The Krath attacked more aggressively. The Vor then pushed their powers further. The burning choir increased their temperature. The humans did something different. They changed their entire approach. Pilot Minji came up with the first innovation. During a space battle, her ship took critical damage. The engines were failing, and the FTL drive was unstable. Instead of ejecting, she aimed the ship at a swarm vessel and overloaded the FTL drive deliberately. The resulting explosion created a localized space-time rupture that destroyed not just the swarm ship, but everything within 2 kilometers. It was incredibly dangerous. It violated dozens of safety protocols. It should not have worked. But it did. Within a week, human engineers had developed FTL torpedoes, missiles with small, unstable FTL drives that could be detonated remotely. They were expensive and hard to make, but they gave the coalition a new weapon the swarm could not easily adapt to. Then there was Junho, a human scientist. He studied the swarm's biology obsessively. He discovered that they communicated through chemical signals, pheromones that told them where to go, what to attack, when to retreat. Junho synthesized artificial versions of these pheromones and weaponized them. The results were devastating. Swarm formations would suddenly turn on each other. They would flee from empty spaces or charge into traps. Their coordination fell apart. It was not a weapon that killed them directly. It was a weapon that confused them, made them vulnerable. Tactician Yunji contributed another innovation. She studied solar patterns and stellar mechanics. During a battle near a red giant star, she predicted a solar flare 3 hours before it happened. She positioned coalition forces safely and lured the swarm into the flare's path. Thousands of swarm creatures were incinerated by radiation and plasma. "How did you think of that?" Velrith asked her. Yunji shrugged. "We don't just look at enemies. We look at everything. Terrain, environment, resources. Anything can be a weapon if you're creative enough." The other coalition species began studying human tactics. The Krath started using ambush strategies instead of just charging. The Vorthen learned to coordinate their psychic attacks with other species' weapons. The burning choir began targeting specific environmental features to maximize their effectiveness. The humans were teaching the galaxy how to fight. One evening, Velrith sat with several coalition soldiers in a mess hall. A Krath warrior named Kliktar approached him. The translator rendered the name approximately. Krath names were complex patterns of sounds. "Observer," Kliktar chittered. "Your species studies others. Tell me something. What made the humans this way? What kind of evolution creates such persistence?" Velrith had been wondering the same thing. He had spent weeks researching human history through their databases. What he found disturbed him. "Their homeworld tried to kill them repeatedly," Velrith said slowly. "Ice ages that covered entire continents. Predators that hunted them when they were weak. Diseases that should have ended their species. And worst of all, other humans. They fought each other for millions of years. Every generation had to be smarter, tougher, more adaptable than the last. The weak died. The inflexible died. Only the most persistent survived to pass on their genes. So they evolved in war," Kliktar said. "Not just war, constant crisis. Their entire history is surviving things that should have killed them. And every time they survived, they learned something new. They remembered. They taught their children. Generation after generation, building knowledge, building techniques. They've been preparing for this kind of fight for their entire existence." Kliktar was quiet for a long time. Then, "That explains why they do not fear us. They have faced worse on their own world." Velrith nodded slowly. The human homeworld, Earth, was a death world by galactic standards. Most species evolved on calm, stable planets. Humans evolved in a place where survival was never guaranteed. A Vorthen named Eshla joined the conversation telepathically. Its thoughts touched Velrith's mind gently. "I have observed their dreams. All species dream, but humans dream differently. They dream of threats, of being chased, of falling, of dying. Every night, their minds prepare them for danger. Even in sleep, they train for survival." That night, Velrith recorded his observations. The humans are not stronger than other species. They are not faster or more naturally armed, but they are built for survival in ways no other species is. Physical endurance, psychological resilience, creative problem-solving. These traits were not chosen, they were forced upon humanity by a hostile universe. And now, when the galaxy faces extinction, those same traits make humans invaluable. I begin to understand why Commander Hyun was confident. The humans have been fighting for survival since before they left their caves. This war against the swarm is new to us. To them, it is just another challenge in a long history of challenges, and they have never lost. But the true test was still coming. Because the Coalition had finally discovered where the swarm came from, the hive world, and soon, they would have to go there. Velrith did not know what horrors awaited them, but he knew one thing for certain. The humans would not stop. They would never stop. That was what made them terrifying. The discovery came through a captured swarm creature. Human scientists, led by Junho, managed to extract information from its biological memory. The swarm had a central hive world, a planet entirely converted into a biological fortress. Every swarm creature could be traced back to this one location. The Coalition Command made a decision. They would destroy the hive world, cut off the head, and the body would die. But first, they needed intelligence. Someone had to go to the hive world, survive long enough to map its defenses and structure, and somehow escape. The data would be used to plan the final assault. It was a suicide mission. Everyone knew it. Every species sent volunteers. The Coalition selected the best of the best. 3 Krath Berserkers, veterans of 100 battles, 2 Vorthan psychic scouts who could hide their presence, 1 Burning Choir warrior, the hottest of their kind, and 5 humans. Commander Hyun, Engineer Jiwon, Medic Sujin, Scout Taeyang, and Communications Specialist Bora. Velrith insisted on joining them. The Coalition Command tried to refuse. He was an observer, not a soldier. But Velrith argued that if this mission failed, someone needed to record what happened. Someone needed to tell the galaxy what they had learned. They let him come. The infiltration ship was designed to be small and stealthy. It approached the hive world carefully, hiding in the shadow of a gas giant moon. Through the viewports, Velrith saw the planet for the first time. It did not look like a world anymore. The entire surface writhed with movement. The ground was covered in organic material, living tissue that pulsed and breathed. Structures grew from the surface like tumors, massive spires made of hardened biological matter. The atmosphere was thick and brown, full of chemicals that would kill most species in minutes. "That is hell," Bora whispered. "That is where we are going," Commander Hyun said. They descended in small pods, designed to look like space debris. The pods broke apart on impact, scattering the team across a small area. Velrith landed hard, his equipment rattling. The ground beneath him felt wrong, soft and warm, like landing on flesh. The team regrouped quickly. They wore sealed suits with air supplies. The atmosphere outside was toxic to everyone except the Burning Choir warrior, who needed no protection. Even through the suits, Velrith could hear sounds, wet, organic sounds, breathing, pulsing. The entire planet was alive. They moved carefully through the landscape. The structures around them were not buildings. They were organs. Giant sacs filled with fluid. Tunnels that contracted and expanded rhythmically. Pools of acidic liquid that digested organic matter. The swarm creatures were everywhere, but most ignored the team. They were busy with their own tasks, building, feeding, reproducing. The team moved slowly and quietly, avoiding attention. Then they encountered the first real threat. A swarm hunter, 3 times the size of normal creatures, with sensory organs that could detect movement and heat. It spotted them. The Krath Berserkers attacked immediately. They moved with incredible speed, their claws flashing. The hunter was tough, its armor thick, but 3 Krath warriors working together could kill almost anything. They tore it apart in under a minute. But the noise attracted more. Hundreds of swarm creatures emerged from tunnels and structures. The team had to run. They fought their way deeper into the hive world. The journey was a nightmare. The burning choir warrior carved paths through enemies, its heat leaving scorched trails. The Vorthan scouts used their powers to crush attackers and create barriers. The Krath berserkers held defensive positions while others moved. But the losses came quickly. One Krath berserker got separated from the group. Velrith watched through his recording equipment as the warrior was overwhelmed by sheer numbers. It killed dozens before falling, but there were hundreds more. The warrior disappeared beneath a wave of bodies. Then one of the Vorthan scouts made a mistake. It pushed its psychic powers too hard, trying to sense the path ahead. But there were too many swarm minds on this planet, billions of them, all connected. The psychic pressure was like trying to listen to a single voice in the middle of a screaming crowd. The Vorthan's mind was compromised, infected with swarm thoughts. It attacked the team, no longer in control of itself. The other Vorthan had to end it. The act of killing its companion shattered something in the survivor. It continued with the mission, but it was damaged, weakened. The burning choir warrior fell into a chasm. The hive world was full of deep pits, trap-filled passages designed to capture and digest intruders. Even the warrior's intense heat could not save it from a fall of several hundred meters into a pool of digestive acid. The team heard its final transmissions, sounds of fury and pain, before silence. They were down to 7. 2 Krath berserkers, 1 damaged Vorthan, 5 humans, and Velrith. The humans led them deeper. Taiyang navigated with skill that surprised Velrith. The scout seemed to understand the hive world's layout instinctively, predicting where tunnels would lead, where dangers lurked. When Velrith asked how, Taiyang said simply, "Pattern recognition. Everything has patterns, even this." Jiwan marked their path with tiny transmitters, creating a map that transmitted back to the infiltration ship. The data would be crucial for the assault force. Sujin kept everyone alive. When a Krath berserker was injured by acid, she treated the wounds with improvised materials. When the Vorthan's mind began fragmenting further, she administered human drugs that somehow helped stabilize its consciousness. Bora maintained communications with the ship above, sending data constantly. If they died, at least the information would survive. And Commander Hyun made the decisions that kept them moving forward. When to fight, when to hide, when to push on despite the danger. They descended for hours, going deeper into the hive world than any coalition force had ever gone. The structures became larger, more complex. They were approaching the center. Then they found it. The Queen's chamber was vast, a cathedral of living tissue. And at the center, the Queen herself. She was massive beyond comprehension. Her body filled most of the chamber, a mountain of biological material that pulsed with life. Thousands of tendrils extended from her form, connecting to the walls, the ceiling, everything. She was not just in the hive. She was the hive. Her mind connected to every swarm creature on the planet and beyond. The team froze. They had not expected to encounter her directly. Their mission was reconnaissance, not assassination. Then the Queen spoke, not with sound, but directly into their minds. Even Velrith, who was not psychic, heard her clearly. "I have been expecting you." The voice was ancient and cold. The Vorthan collapsed immediately, overwhelmed by the Queen's psychic power. The Krath berserkers clicked their mandibles in fear, something Velrith had never heard before. But the humans raised their weapons. They did not run. They did not freeze. They prepared to fight a being that could crush their minds with a thought. The Queen laughed, a sound like wind through graves. "So brave, so foolish. We have consumed 1,000 species. We have faced claws and fire and void. We have devoured the strong and the fast. But you..." Her attention focused on the humans specifically. Velrith felt it, like pressure in his skull. "You are the first prey that frightens us." Commander Hyun's voice was steady. "Then you understand what humans are. Yes, we have been studying you. We have dissected your dead. We have analyzed your tactics. We understand what you are now. You do not fight like other species. You learn. You remember. You adapt. Every battle teaches you something new. Every loss makes you more dangerous. You do not have natural weapons, but you create them. You do not have armored skin, but you invent protection. You are weak individually, but you cooperate perfectly. The queen paused, her massive form shifting slightly. You pass knowledge between generations. You build upon what came before. Every human who dies teaches the others through their sacrifice. You are not warriors. You are a process. An algorithm of survival that refines itself constantly. One of the Krath berserkers found its voice. If you understand this, why do you fear them? Because we can assimilate strength, the queen said. We can consume armor and make it part of us. We can devour fire-resistant biology and adapt it. But the humans possess something we cannot consume. Something that exists only in their minds. What? Velrith heard himself ask. Spite? The word hung in the chamber. They do not fight because they are strong. They fight because they refuse to lose. They do not survive because they are equipped for it. They survive because they choose to. When every logical analysis says they should surrender, they keep fighting. When the odds are impossible, they find a way. They are not optimized for war. They are optimized for not dying. And there is a difference. Commander Hyun smiled grimly. Then you understand why you've already lost. The queen's presence pressed down on them like a physical weight. Perhaps. But if you think I will let you leave with that data, the data is already transmitted, Boris said quietly. Has been since we got here. The ship is uploading everything to Coalition Command right now. The queen's rage exploded psychically. The chamber shook. Swarm creatures began pouring in from every tunnel. Run! Hyun shouted. They ran. The Krath berserkers held the rear, sacrificing themselves to buy time. Their death clicks echoed through the tunnels. The damaged Vorthan used its last strength to collapse a passage behind them, then dissolved into nothing, its mind finally shattering completely. Only Velrith, Hyun, Jiwon, and Sujin reached the surface. They ran through the writhing landscape, swarm creatures everywhere. Their extraction pod launched from where it had been hidden, automated systems guiding it to them. They climbed in as enemies surrounded them. The pod launched, engines screaming. They broke atmosphere with swarm flyers chasing them. The infiltration ship grabbed the pod and jumped to FTL immediately. They had escaped. Barely. In the ship's medical bay, Sujin treated their wounds while Jiwon verified the data transmission. Everything had been sent. Maps, weaknesses, the location of the queen. Commander Hyun sat quietly, staring at nothing. They are all dead, he said finally. 9 warriors went down there. 4 came back. Velrith recorded the moment. The pain in Hyun's eyes, the weight of survival. They bought us the information we needed, Jiwon said softly. Now we can end this. Yes, Hyun agreed. Now we can end this. And we will. For them. The mission was a success, but the cost was terrible. Velrith understood now, more than ever, what the queen had meant. Humans did not fight because they enjoyed it. They fought because stopping meant letting the people they cared about die. And they would pay any price, endure any horror to prevent that. Even if it meant walking into hell itself. The coalition assembled everything it had. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon left in the arsenal. This was the final battle. They would destroy the hive world or die trying. There was no middle ground. Velrith watched the fleet gather from the command ship's observation deck. Thousands of vessels, representing dozens of species. The largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. It should have been inspiring. Instead, it felt desperate. The data from the infiltration mission had been analyzed. The coalition knew the hive world's defenses, the queen's location, the structure's weak points. They had a plan. But plans only worked if you survived long enough to execute them. Commander Hyun stood beside Velrith, watching the fleet. The human commander looked tired. They all did. Months of constant warfare had worn everyone down. But the humans showed it differently than other species. Where others grew slow or hesitant, humans grew quiet and focused. We will win this, Hyun said. not confident, just factual. How can you be certain? Velrith asked. Because losing is not an option, so we will find a way. The fleet moved toward the hive world. The swarm was waiting. Of course they were. The Queen knew the coalition was coming. She had been preparing since the infiltration team escaped. When they arrived, Velrith saw what preparation meant. The space around the hive world was filled with swarm bioships, living vessels grown from the same organic material as the creatures themselves. Thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands. And the planet itself had changed. New weapons grew from its surface, massive organic cannons that could fire explosive biological projectiles into space. The battle began. It was apocalyptic. Ships died in the first minutes. The swarm bioships swarmed coalition vessels, latching onto hulls, eating through armor, delivering soldiers directly into enemy ships. The organic cannons fired constantly, their projectiles bursting against shields and hulls. Coalition forces fought back with everything they had. Krath warships tore through bioships with massive claws mounted on their hulls. Vorthan cruisers used psychic amplifiers to crush enemies from a distance. Burning choir vessels were mobile infernos, incinerating anything that got close. And the humans used precision. Their ships were smaller, faster, and equipped with the weapons they had developed during the campaign. FTL torpedoes created space-time ruptures. Chemical weapons confused swarm formations. Coordinated strikes targeted specific weak points identified from the data. But it was not enough. The swarm was too numerous. For every bioship destroyed, more came. The planet itself was producing them constantly, birthing new ships to replace losses. The coalition was being overwhelmed. Velrith watched the tactical displays with growing horror. Red markers, representing destroyed coalition ships, multiplied across the screens. Entire divisions vanished. Species that had fought bravely for months were being wiped out. The plan was failing. Then Commander Hyun did something unexpected. He opened a private communication channel to all human ships. Velrith's recording equipment picked up the transmission, but at first he did not understand what he was hearing. All human vessels, this is Commander Hyun. Activate Protocol Olympus. Authorization Hyun Alpha 77. There was silence for a moment. Then responses came from human ships across the fleet. Understood. Confirmed. We're ready. Velrith turned to Hyun. What is Protocol Olympus? Hyun looked at him, and for the first time Velrith saw something that might have been sadness in the commander's eyes. Our final option, Hyun said. Across the fleet, human ships began changing their behavior. They broke formation. They stopped defensive maneuvers, and they all turned toward the hive world. Then Velrith understood, and his blood turned cold. No, he said. You cannot. It is the only way, Hyun interrupted. We analyze the data. The Queen is deep inside the planet, protected by layers of organic armor and defensive systems. Conventional weapons cannot reach her fast enough. But if we create a massive simultaneous impact, crack the planet's structure in multiple places at once, we can compromise the defenses long enough for the main fleet to deliver killing strikes. You are talking about using your ships as weapons, crashing them into the planet. Your people will die. Yes. The simple acknowledgement hit Velrith harder than any physical blow. Human vessels across the fleet began broadcasting evacuation orders. They moved close to other coalition ships, launched escape pods containing non-human crew members. The other species tried to protest, tried to refuse, but the humans were adamant. This is our choice, a human pilot named Minji broadcast. You have families, civilizations waiting for you. We do this so you can go home. Dr. Nari appeared on Velrith's screen. She was on a medical ship, still treating wounded. Behind her, crew members were being forced onto escape pods. Velrith, she said, you need to record this. Tell them what we did. Tell them why. Doctor, please, there must be another way. There is not. We ran the calculations. This is the only option that gives the coalition a real chance. She smiled, and it was genuine, warm. It is okay. This is what humans do. We sacrifice so others can live. It is not noble or heroic. It is just practical. Better some of us die than all of us die. The screen went dark. Velrith watched in horror as human ships completed their evacuations. Every non-human crew member was transferred to other vessels. Then the human ships aligned themselves with the Hive world. 3,000 humans had joined the Coalition Defense Force months ago. After the long campaign, after countless battles, just over 1,000 remained. And now, every single one of them was pointing their ship toward the Hive world. Commander Hyun's voice broadcast across all frequencies. To the Coalition, you have given us honor by fighting beside us. We have given you everything we can. Use what we are about to buy you. Finish this. Go home to your families. Tell them that humans stood with you. And win. Then, to the human ships only, to all human vessels, it has been a privilege serving with you, for Earth, for humanity, for the future. See you on the other side. The human ships accelerated toward the planet. They moved in waves, timed precisely. Different speeds, different trajectories, but all calculated to hit simultaneously. As they descended, swarm defenses tore into them. Bioships attacked. Organic cannons fired. Human vessels were damaged, destroyed, but the ones that remained kept going. They did not slow down. Velrith watched through sensors as the first wave hit. Dozens of human ships struck the Hive world's surface at relativistic speeds. The impact was cataclysmic. Explosions bloomed across the planet's organic surface. But the humans had done more. They had overloaded their ships' reactors, their FTL drives, their weapons. Each impact was not just kinetic energy, it was a detonation. The second wave hit, then the third. The entire planet shook. Its organic structure began cracking. The defenses faltered. The constant production of bioships stopped. Jiwon's ship crashed directly into a massive defensive structure. The engineer's last transmission was data. Coordinates, weak points, last-minute tactical information. Her ship's explosion destroyed the structure and created a path for Coalition forces. Minji's vessel dove into an organic cannon emplacement. The resulting explosion triggered a chain reaction that destroyed dozens of similar weapons. Human ships fell like meteors. Each one a funeral pyre, each one a hammer blow against the swarm. And it worked. The Hive world's defenses collapsed. The organic armor cracked. The Queen's chamber was exposed. All Coalition forces, the fleet commander broadcast, attack now. Target the exposed areas. This is our chance. The remaining Coalition ships surged forward. They poured firepower into the cracks created by human sacrifice. Massive weapons, psychic assaults, concentrated heat. Everything struck the Hive world's core. The planet screamed. Velrith could feel it even through the ship's hull. The Queen's death cry echoed psychically across the system. Swarm creatures everywhere convulsed. Bioships stopped moving. The coordination that made the swarm so dangerous simply stopped. Without the Queen, they were just animals. Dangerous, but not organized. The Coalition pressed the attack. They systematically destroyed every swarm presence in the system. It took hours, but eventually, the space around the Hive world was clear. The planet itself was a dying husk, its organic surface burning and collapsing. The swarm was broken. This was the end. But the cost was terrible. Velrith checked the casualties. The human fleet was gone. Of over 1,000 humans who had participated in the final assault, only 147 survived. They had been on ships that were too damaged to make the final run, or they had been medical personnel evacuated with other species, or they were in escape pods recovered after the battle. Commander Hyun had survived. His ship had been crippled by earlier damage, unable to join the final assault. Sujin survived, having been transferred to a medical vessel, but so many others were gone. Dr. Nari Jiwon, Minji, Taeyong, Bora, Junho, Doyeon, Yoonji. Hundreds of others whose names Velrith had recorded, whose faces he had documented, all gone. The surviving humans gathered on the command ship. They held another memorial service. Longer this time. They read names for an hour. Some cried. Some stood silent, but they honored their dead. Velrith recorded everything. Months later, Velrith presented his findings to the Galactic Council. His documentation was now a historical record of the war against the Swarm. The council chambers were silent as they watched his recordings. They saw human adaptability, human endurance, human creativity, human sacrifice. When the presentation ended, the council debated for hours. Some species were afraid of humans, a species that could willingly sacrifice themselves so completely. What else were they capable of? Other species wanted to honor them, recognize what humanity had given. Commander Hune attended the final session. He was asked to speak. The human stood before the council, alone, small compared to many species present, fragile-looking. But every being in that chamber knew what humans were capable of. "We are not monsters," Hune said. "We are not heroes. We are survivors. We fought because the alternative was extinction, ours and yours. That is all we have ever done. Survive. And help others survive when we can." The council erected a memorial to the human fleet. It was placed in neutral space, visible to ships from all coalition species. The inscription was written in Korean at human insistence. It translated to, "We were here. We stood. We did not yield." Velrith completed his final report. His thesis was titled, "Humanity, a Study in Competitive Persistence." His conclusion read, "I have studied over 100 species in my lifetime. I have documented their cultures, their wars, their triumphs and failures. But only one species ever made me grateful they fought beside me, not against me. Humans possess no natural armor. They have no psychic powers. They cannot survive in vacuum or generate lethal heat. By every physical measure, they are weak. But they have something more valuable than physical strength. They have will, an absolute refusal to accept defeat. Where other species would surrender, humans adapt. Where other species would flee, humans hold their ground. Where other species would despair, humans find hope. Their strength is not in their bodies, it is in their minds. In their capacity to endure suffering, learn from losses, and keep fighting no matter the odds. They turn every defeat into a lesson, and every lesson into a weapon. Perhaps that is what makes them truly terrifying. The knowledge that if humanity decides something must be done, nothing in the universe can convince them otherwise. Not logic, not suffering, not death itself. The Swarm Queen understood this. She called it spite. Perhaps she was right, but I prefer to call it something else: determination. The swarm consumed 1,000 species, but humanity consumed the swarm's confidence, its advantage, and finally, the swarm itself. I stood beside creatures of nightmare, beings that could tear metal, survive in the void, and burn with the heat of stars. Yet none were like the humans. Because the others were born as weapons. The humans made themselves into them, and that makes all the difference. Velrith's final entry, written for himself alone, was simple. "I hope I never have to see humans fight again. But more than that, I hope I never have to fight against them. Because I have seen what they are capable of. And I know, with absolute certainty, that they will pay any price for victory, even the price of their own lives. The galaxy is safer with humans as our friends, and the universe should be grateful for that." Years later, human survivors taught coalition species their methods, their tactical doctrines, their survival techniques. The galaxy learned from humanity's sacrifice. And when new threats emerged in the future, coalition forces fought differently. They adapted like humans. They persisted like humans. They refused to yield like humans. Humanity had lost most of their people, but they had given the galaxy something far more valuable: the understanding that evolution does not determine destiny. That physical strength is not the only strength that matters. That will and determination can overcome almost anything. The human fleet was gone, but their legacy remained. In every coalition soldier who adapted their tactics mid-battle. In every commander who refused to surrender despite impossible odds. In every species that learned to push through exhaustion and fear to achieve victory. Humanity had given them the gift of human persistence, and the galaxy would never forget. Commander Hune stood before the memorial one last time before returning to Earth. He placed his hand on the monument and spoke quietly. We were here. We stood. We did not yield. And we never will. Behind him, the stars shone bright. Somewhere out there, other humans were being born, growing up, learning their history, learning what their species had done. And if another threat ever came, if the galaxy ever needed humans again, they would answer. Because that was what humans did. They survived. They adapted. They fought. And they never, ever gave up.